This is a Let's Talk Church Safety and Security microsode with your host, Paul Buckner. Hey sheepdogs, so I am going to start another series of little bite-sized thoughts. And this one is the realities of a gunfight, part one. And so a lot of times we can set ourselves up for failure by assuming certain things about a gunfight. I've had people tell me, well, the average gunfight happens over this distance with this many rounds, this many shots are exchanged, there's this many misses. Well, you can play to those averages, or you can actually end up in a situation where if you aren't careful, you won't bring enough gun for the fight. You won't train enough for those situations. And if you really want to play to the averages, the average gun owner will never have to draw their weapon. The average gun owner will never face a home invasion. Odds are, on an average of my days going to work, I could probably get away with not wearing my seatbelt, and my only worry would be a police officer pulling me over. Averages, playing to averages and thinking about averages is a really bad idea. I don't like that. The average church will never see an active shooter. Odds are, on the average Sunday, there will not be a medical incident at a church, but you should still have an AED because it's going to happen. I mean, so it's one of those things that setting ourselves up for failure like that's a very bad idea. And so this first video is me just kind of talking about some of the details, but in a gunfight, there's a lot of things that happen that maybe we don't think about. I had a guy tell me that he always practices for a gunfight without hearing protection. And I said, you do understand that with vasoconstriction, what happens in our bodies in a life or death situation, your hearing is actually restricted. And in many cases, people actually have hearing loss during a gunfight. And so when you're training to be shooting by not wearing hearing protection, all you're doing is actually causing yourself hearing loss. And it's an excuse not to wear hearing protection in a situation where you're not alarmed, scared, fighting for your life, and potentially injured. You're not helping yourself at all. And so when you refuse to wear hearing protection in a situation like that, you're just hurting your ears. In an actual gunfight, a lot of people don't remember hearing anything at all. And there's very famous incidents where there was a couple of state troopers, it was back in the revolver days as I recollect, but they didn't have all this data yet. And both of these guys had emptied their cylinders at someone in a shots exchanged gunfight. And the senior state trooper said, something's wrong with our ammo, because he didn't hear the shots fired because of vasoconstriction. You're going to get a narrowing of your vision, and these are realities of a gunfight. It has to do, the shape of our eyes actually change. The cones in our eyes actually change in a gunfight, and this is why they talk about tunnel vision. And so this is why you should teach yourself to be looking around. I know of police officers that have been in high-speed chases and crossed intersections without looking because of tunnel vision, because of target fixation. And so you may not be able to hear anything, which means you may not hear shots fired from another direction. You may not hear commands being given to you by police officers or friends. And if you are in a situation like this, and we'll talk about this more in the next video, but if you're in a situation like that where all of a sudden all these things are going on and you're not hearing and you're not seeing everything, and this is precluding injury. You may not actually be injured in that situation, but because of what's happening in your body, you don't actually know what these things are happening around you. And so I was watching somebody walk up and get into their vehicle off to the side of my vehicle, and you could actually see them in the back of the video. That's funny. Here in a minute, I'm going to go in and get a cup of coffee before I go to my next appointment. But these are realities of gunfights. And so we'll talk about it in the next video, but if you're in a gun battle and you're coming up on somebody who is a friend, they may not hear you talking, they may not hear you approaching, and you may actually have to affect like a touch. This is why in certain combat situations, soldiers are trained, Marines are trained to put their hands on someone's shoulder going into an environment, and as they're in a stack and moving, because that can be felt over the clamor of battle. So I'm going to go get a cup of coffee and we'll continue this. If you enjoyed this microsode, check out the video and audio versions of the Let's Talk Church Safety and Security podcast.